Um, this is the reading for today. It's a poem by Philip Larkin called Water. If I were called in to construct a religion, I should make use of water. Going to church would entail affording to dry different clothes. My liturgy would employ images of sousing, a furious, devout drench. And I should raise in the east a glass of water where any angled light would congregate endlessly. So Larkin's constructed religion would entail submerging oneself in water, an unspoken baptism, bridging our ordinary lives and the place where light would congregate endlessly. And I truly believe in that baptism by water. So I'm an open water swimmer. I go, even here in the pandemic, I actually drive an hour away to Lake Comet in Hubbardston, which is a little bit about how dedicated I am to swimming in the open water. It's just incredibly beautiful to be there in the open water. And it really is a form of meditation or prayer for me when I'm submerged there. So as Elizabeth Avicito says in this piece called Clap When You Land, swimming might be the closest to flying a human being can get. There is something about your body displacing water in order to propel through space that makes you feel God-touched, that makes you understand evolution, that we really must have crawled up from the sea. So that idea of being God-touched, and I know that's not language we often hear in a Unitarian service, but that idea of the submersion within water being part of the divine is so powerful and important for me. And I have to stop for a moment because it's important in this day and time to talk and acknowledge my privilege as a cis, straight, white, middle-class woman who is going swimming in an open pond. So I go swimming before the park rangers come up, and when I come out of the water at the end and there's the park ranger there, he's not scolding me. He's not telling me you did something wrong. He's saying, hi, how was your swim? That's a privilege. And I know that. I'm really, really aware of that. I'm aware of that because just about 2 months ago, maybe 3 months ago, my friend Ambrose was speaking to my class of students at the time. And he's a marine biologist emeritus at Woods Hole. And he was talking with one of the boys in my group who's a Boy Scout working towards his Eagle Scout. And Ambrose said, I never got my Eagle Scout badge. I never got that. I wasn't able to because I grew up in the segregated South. And because to get the final badge that he needed, his swimming badge, he needed to be tested in a pool. He had learned to swim in lakes and rivers, but there was no pool that Ambrose was able to swim in. So I am very, very aware that my ability to swim in many, many places without penalty, without concern, is about my whiteness, and I just want to own up to that. And the other piece that I just really want to bring into these talks today is the role of the African American spirituals. So we just heard 2 of those, and we're not even going to hear a third, but that is what constantly is in my head when I am swimming, when I am immersed in that. And it's something that Ambrose and I have talked about many, many times, about the way in which water plays this incredible role in religion and in spirituality. And one of the things that I think about in those melodies is that they're melismatic. So an African-American spiritual, these spirituals, they carry one note over, they carry one word over several notes, so that you get this wade in the water, many, many, many notes just to one word. And that winding of the notes are like rivers. You know, it's like water flowing. It's like the River Jordan, which is referenced so frequently in these spirituals. And it's interesting just to note that actually when spirituals became more mainstream, they became through a process, the Fisk Jubilee Singers, which many of you have heard about. In fact, probably many of us have that songbook, the Fisk Jubilee Singers songbook. And what in the process of making that songbook up, those spirituals were rearranged from that sort of wild, melismatic, you know, polyphonic, people coming in at any given moment, much more syncopated rhythms into 4-part harmony. Beautiful, don't get me wrong, super, super, super beautiful. But taken away from that sort of original sense of the river and the movement and the wildness there and the sort of awareness of water as a spiritual force. So I really want to talk today about what I've learned about being in the place, being present in the place of uncertainty from my experience as an open water swimmer. And I've learned about 7 things, more or less. But I want to start just by acknowledging the fact that not everybody likes to open water swim. In fact, a lot of people, you know, don't like it at all. I have this great quote from Leanne Sharpton in a book called Swimming Studies. And she writes, "For being pool trained, I'm used to seeing 4 sides and a bottom. When that clarity is removed, I get nervous. I imagine things, sharks, the slippery sides of large fish, shaggy pieces of sunken frigates, dark corroded iron currents." So her imagination is taking over, you know, and that's true with uncertainty, right? When we're in the middle of uncertainty, our imaginations go to town. We can't see the sides, we can't see the bottom. We don't have our neatly, you know, cordoned off lanes. We don't have the measurement of, you know, how long we are swimming and that nice touch of the wall, you know, to turn around. We're out there. I mean, when we open water swim, we are out there and we have to just keep swimming to the other side. You know, we are sort of stuck in the middle of that uncertainty. So I think it's just a really good metaphor for, you know, the uncertain times that we're in. So my experience of open water swimming teaches me how to be more present in this uncertainty. And the first way it does that is just immersion. When we are in uncertainty, we must immerse ourselves fully in it and be present in it. We must be present with the ways in which it makes us feel uncomfortable, scared even. We must let it, you know, submerge us. When we learn how to swim, the first thing we do is to put our faces in the water. That's the very first thing that we do. It's so unnatural, right? The very first thing you do when you learn how to swim is to put your face in the water to prevent yourself from breathing and to pick your head up again. You can't actually learn how to swim if you doggy paddle, if your neck's above water the whole time. You just get a bad, you know, cramp in your neck. You have to give in to what the water can do, the physics of the water, the dynamics. You have to submerge yourself into it. So when we understand how to be present in uncertainty, when we understand how to be held by the water, to be held by things that you cannot fully see or cannot fully know, we become more present with our own feelings. We become more able to be empathetic. We become more able to be curious about exploration just by acknowledging where we are and letting ourselves fully be there. 2, when I open water swim, and swimming in general, it becomes a form of meditation, a rhythm, a type of pace through the uncertainty. You know, I'm a breaststroker, so there's that pull movement and then glide, pull movement and then glide. You know, it's rhythmic, it's musical, it's measured. Cesar Kiharian writes, swimming is simply moving meditation. And it really is. You know, again, The first thing that we do when we become comfortable with swimming is we put our face in the water. We understand what it means to control our own breath, to let ourselves be without breath, to take in a breath, to let ourselves be without breath, to take in a breath, to give ourselves over to the fact that we cannot breathe for that moment, that we do not know. 3, perspective. So I like to think of swimming as taking on the frog's perspective, you know, that I've got my goggles on and, you know, I'm looking either both inside the lake and then I peek up and I can see that rim of the water, you know, so I'm amphibious in that way. And in this way, I get to see things that I wouldn't normally see. I pay attention, I have awareness. So the purplish crosshatch of the water lilies, the underside of the leaf, it's so beautiful. And we don't normally see it when we're looking down from above. Their thick stems, the shadows of the petals on the water. I've been lucky enough at Lake Comet to see an eagle flying across the lake multiple times, you know, and I'm looking at it, you know, looking at its belly as it flies. What an incredible, incredible perspective to see that. The perspective of the strange and frightening, you know, the stick in the water, that might be a snake. Maybe it's a snake, you know, I don't know what it is, you know, maybe it is a snake, maybe it's a stick, but just that, just awareness of seeing things from a different perspective, which again brings out that sense of curiosity. You know, what is happening here? What am I learning? What am I being taught here? What am I listening to? 4, acceptance. This is huge. So when I swim in open water, I accept that there are things I cannot know and cannot see. The small fish that come to nibble at my legs and my feet when I first step into the water have larger relatives. I know they're there. I don't see them, you know. Sometimes, you know, when I kick, my foot drifts across something, you know, vegetal. What is it? Not really sure. Not going to stop to look, you know, but it's there, you know. So I have to accept that at a really deep level, that there are perspectives and experiences and information that I do not know, that I may never know, as a matter of fact, you know. There's something really beautiful about being one of only a few people in the water, small against that vast lake, held against the vast sky, sort of this lake and the sky mirroring each other. And that radical acceptance of what I don't know brings that type of humility and humbleness, which I think is so powerful in thinking about acceptance and thinking about uncertainty. You know, what is it that we can control? What is our role in here? What is our part? You know, often much smaller and larger simultaneously than we think, you know. So 5, community and interdependence. So when I swim at Lake Comet, I'm greeting a friend there at 7 a.m. Usually, sometimes I do actually swim alone. And, you know, we each strike out alone across the water with, you know, if you know open water swimmers, we're wearing this like floating buoy, neon buoy that's trailing behind us. So we've got this colorful buoy that's going behind us. And it's just this, you know, few people with their colorful buoys bobbing, you know, gliding, moving through the lake. There's this type of community that is acknowledged and yet unspoken. And that idea of just being aware in uncertainty of what is the community that is around you. And also, what are the things that you're doing for yourself? You know, interdependence is really important too. I wear that floating buoy. You know, I do sometimes go out swimming by myself and I wear that floating buoy. You know, I wear my goggles. I gear up in the ways that I can. 6, duality or interconnectedness. So, you know, I already mentioned the fact that as a breaststroker, it's stroke and glide, that the thing of swimming is about floating and moving. It's that weightlessness that exists and also just feeling all of the surrounding sensation on your body. It's sort of held just sort of on a very personal and cultural note. I've been skinnier and fatter in my life, and one of the joys about being fatter is that I am an incredible floater when I'm fatter. It's just unbelievably, and it's such a joy. I mean, it is such a joy. And when I was a little bit thinner than I am right now, it was a little bit harder to float. So that's just a little tiny cultural note, but that's a type of duality there too. You know, that what do we find out or discover in the water by immersing ourselves, by being aware of that duality? So there's something, Leanne Sharpton, again, in that swimming studies, has this quote, and she says, "There's something rarely articulated about the metaphysical state of swimming. The body, immersed, feels amplified, heavier and lighter at the same time. Weightless, yet stronger," you know? And I just think that's like an incredible thing, that sense of duality. And that leads me to my 7th point, that uncertainty as a state is actually not binary. You know, it's not, oh, we're perfectly clear and it's perfectly certain, or we're completely in the drink, so to speak, and it's completely, you know, unclear. There are moments of clarity and awareness in uncertainty, and moments of mystery and confusion in certainty. Rather, I think that uncertainty and open water swimming is a liminal state. It's the state of the potential for transformation, for gathering up for new action. It is the borderlands, like the River Jordan, in which we have the opportunity to immerse ourselves and be changed. So in thinking about, you know, our current pandemic times, you know, when I think of the before COVID times and think about emerging afterwards, I actually hope that we don't go back to our before COVID times. I want to emerge, you know, I mean, my idealistic thoughts are, I want to emerge as a better nation, as a more just nation, as a more empathetic nation, you know, greater empathy, greater healthcare, greater racial justice, greater social justice. You know, I want that transformation from the murkiness that is now. You know, I think of that other spiritual, lay down your sword and shield down by the riverside. You know, lay down your sword and shield. Why are they laying down their sword and shield? It's not just to put them in a pile, but because the next action is going to be to enter the river, to enter the liminal state, to be transformed into a different way of action. That water, that river, that open lake is the place of transformation. That the singers are about to enter the river, enter the water. They have the possibility of transformation, of seeing themselves and the world around them more deeply. And I'm going to kind of jam in a quote here that doesn't perfectly fit, but I just wanted to use it so much. So a former student of mine, a folk singer, Meg Hutchinson, she's got a song called Stars. And she's a person who's been through a tremendous amount of depression and attempted suicide in her life. And, you know, this song begins about looking at those bugs on the water that are called boatmen, and looking at them and re-seeing them as raindrops. And the chorus of the song is about seeing her own scars on her body as stars that illuminate the lake that she's looking at. You know, that we have such a profound possibility of transformation when we give ourselves over to it, when we give ourselves over to, you know, this liminal state of being. So that sort of brings us to the last song that we're going to sing today. And I want to talk about it a little bit before we talk. So, you know, just to think about what I learned about uncertainty is to be present in it, to breathe through it, to gain new perspectives, to employ radical acceptance for what I do not know, to be aware of both how I help myself and how I'm with other people, to be aware of the interconnectedness or duality of things. It's not either or. And to think of uncertainty as a liminal state in which there is, if we choose it, if we're able, the possibility of transformation. So this final song, I'm just going to read out the chorus because I think the lyrics are so incredible. It goes, we are living neath the great Big Dipper. We are washed by the very same rain. We are swimming in the stream together, some in power and some in pain. We can worship this ground we walk on, cherishing the beings that we live beside. Loving spirits will live forever. We're all swimming to the other side. So when I told a friend that I was going to use this song, and she's like, but wait, swimming to the other side implies that the other side is the success, like, you know, and I'm like, well, no, it's just more interconnected than that. It's more liminal than that. Swimming there is, you know, for my grammar nerds out there, it's a progressive participle. So it's the active state of being transformed. It's the active state of doing things, you know, of, again, glide, action, awareness, action. And the lyrics to that song really sound like it's a spiritual song. And yet, in an interview with Mlcak Partridge, Pat Humphries, who wrote the song and calls herself a community activist, says, Mlcak Partridge says, the song sounds like religion, but Pat Humphries calls it politics. And I agree. So singing spirituals was and still is a political act. The title here is Swimming. We are still active in the things that we want to change. And just again, for my song nerds out there, the song that we're about to sing, it's not actually melismatic like those spirituals are. You know, in fact, it's got a whole bunch of words jammed in there. Yeah, you know, many, many, many words are occupying one note as opposed to one word occupying many notes. In fact, Humphries says in that same interview on All Things Considered that she thought this song couldn't be sung by anybody else but her because, quote, it's one long run-on sentence with no commas. And that's true. If you look on it, it's just like, in fact, I wasn't sure that I would be able to sing it as well. So, but that's important because that song doesn't dictate where to breathe. Each singer, each swimmer has to make these choices about your own breath, about your own action. Each of us has to figure out how to let ourselves be open to our own spiritual, personal, and yes, political growth. And to do that, you may want to get out of the pool and into some open water. So may it be so, and may there always be a wild peace in your heart.